Ever bite into a burger and wonder, huh, what's the deal with this patty's past?
Haha, right.
Like, how'd it get here?
Totally.
Well, today we're taking that thought on a wild ride, especially if you're into McDonald's Quarter Pounders, because we're diving into a food safety investigation that's happening right now as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about a multi-state E. coli outbreak, and it seems like those famous burgers might be the main suspect.
Yeah, the investigation is ongoing, which is what makes it so fascinating, The clock is ticking, and health officials are scrambling to pinpoint exactly where this outbreak is stemming from. So understanding the facts as they stand right now, it's more important than ever for everybody.
Right, absolutely. So let's break down what we've got so far, like what we know for sure.
Yeah.
The CDC put out an alert about this E. coli outbreak, and it's hitting multiple states. And the common denominator seems to be people eating McDonald's Quarter Pounders.
Exactly.
But, and this is the big but, they still haven't figured out which ingredient is the culprit. It's like a food detective story.
You got it. And that's what makes this investigation so crucial. Finding that missing piece, that contaminated ingredient, that's not just about solving this particular outbreak, It's about preventing future ones from popping up.
Makes sense.
If they can trace it back to the source, maybe a dodgy supplier or a whole batch of bad ingredients, who knows, they can take action on a much larger scale. It's about public health beyond this one incident. It's about the big picture.
Yeah. Stop it before it spreads.
Yeah.
Right? Like a domino effect. You knock over that first domino.
And the whole thing comes tumbling down.
Precisely. And in the meantime, McDonald's is actually playing ball with the investigation, which is good. They've even gone ahead and pulled those slivered onions, the fresh ones, and the quarter-pound beef patties themselves off the menus in those affected states.
Yeah, it's a smart move, really. Those patties, they're unique to the Quarter Pounder, right? And the slivered onions, they're mainly used on those burgers, too.
Smart.
So it's a strategic move while they try to get to the bottom of this whole thing.
Right. They're narrowing things down, which is what we need to do, too. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty about this E. coli. We're talking specifically about E. coli 157.H7.
Right, and this isn't your everyday upset stomach, This is serious stuff. This strain produces a toxin called Shiga toxins, and that can cause some pretty nasty symptoms.
Okay, like what?
Well, people usually think E. coli, they think tummy troubles. And while, you do get those bad cramps and diarrhea, which is often bloody, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And vomiting, all that fun stuff. But this particular strain can actually be a lot worse. This is where it gets really important, especially for your listeners.
Okay, lay it on us.
So there's this very real risk of developing something called hemolytic uremic syndrome, or HUS for short. It's a serious kidney condition.
Then that's
Basically, your kidneys, the organs that filter waste from your blood, they can start shutting down.
Whoa.
Yeah, and that is a huge deal, especially for young kids and older folks. It can be really, really bad news. So this is not something to mess around with.
No kidding. Knowing the symptoms, catching it early, and getting immediate medical help, that can make all the difference. We're talking about preventing lifelong health problems here.
So, listeners, if any of you have, grabbed a bite at McDonald's recently and you're starting to feel any of these symptoms we've talked about,
Don't wait.
call your doctor. Seriously, don't mess around with this.
Being informed is the best defense you have in situations like this. Knowledge is power, my friend.
100%. Now, while the food safety detectives are out there doing their thing, I gotta ask, how does this even work? How do you even begin to trace contamination in a system as huge and, let's face it, kind of chaotic as the fast food industry? It just seems mind-boggling.
Right. It's incredible. It's like one giant complex puzzle. But instead of cardboard pieces, you're dealing with shipping routes and supplier records and food handling practices across hundreds of locations. It's wild.
Yeah, I wouldn't know where to start. Usually they'll start by interviewing the people who got sick, right? They ask things like, okay, so tell me everything you ate. Where'd you eat it? When did you eat it? All that jazz. And then from there, it's all about meticulously retracing those steps and examining the food handling practices at every single stage of the journey. I'm talking farm to supplier to restaurant.
Wow. That's a lot of ground to cover.
It is, but these outbreaks really just highlight just how complex our food system really is. And even more importantly, they show us why those safety measures at every single level. They're not just suggestions, they're vital.
Right, totally. We need transparency. We need swift action. We need serious food safety protocols, not just like every now and then, but all the time.
100%. Now, this particular investigation is zeroing in on, one restaurant chain, one ingredient, but it does make you think about the bigger picture, doesn't it?
For sure.
It raises some interesting questions.
It really does. And that's what we're here for, right? To get people thinking. So to all our listeners out there, what are your thoughts on food safety in our fast food loving world? How do we strike that balance between convenience and keeping ourselves and our families safe?
It's a question worth chewing on, if you'll pardon the pun.
I love it.
It's food for thought.